Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our regular Wednesday stream. We're back, and we're back with no guest, unfortunately.
It's just us.
It's just us this week.
I'm sorry, you're stuck with us.
Yes, it is just us, but we're back,
I'm sorry.
and we're doing the promised follow-up. I think this is one of the shortest gaps between, apart from like a stream that was scheduled right after it, of like us promising a follow-up and giving a follow-up. Because we are notorious sometimes for promising things will happen, and then they don't end up happening. I mean,
I think we are careful not to promise.
oh no,
things.
not promising, but we gently suggest sometimes.
I think we always like to put the idea out there anyway, just to see what sort of reception there is to it. But I think we already had the format for this stream kind of planned out anyway, and it's such a nice follow-on from a previous one, which of course, if anyone hasn't seen. If you're watching it live, please do stay with us for the moment. But if you are watching the VOD, I presume there'll probably be a link below for the first part, which should be a really nice bit of context and history on how OFCOM came to be, what some of its remit was, and how it's sort of changed over time, and how it's become really a tool of the Conservative Party to engage in total narrative control. And the sort of plan this evening is to have a brief look through a lot of the different papers on DEI and reports then on the papers and so many other follow-up things that we can really see how these standards are applied and how they all work into an example that you brought forward with us to look at towards the latter part of the stream, which is BitChute. But in the meantime, we will make sure to thank those who turn up to the streams regularly and watch and interact in the chat. We do see you. The members of the channel, of course, because they support us directly. And anyone who puts forward a super chat, or I believe it's the PayPal of yours that we're using at the moment.
Yes. Well, I'll put that
Streamlabs.
in the description here. If you guys do want to donate to us without YouTube taking a cut, we are still fully monetized though, so you can, if you want, become a member. You can do the donations, all the good stuff, and do interact with the videos. Blah blah blah. We're doing our kind of normal preamble. I did see there was an echo there for some reason. The YouTube decided to play when we told it not to play. But that sometimes happens.
Bad YouTube.
Yeah, bad YouTube. Very bad YouTube. This is why we generally have the desktop audio like muted, just because like autoplay. The worst one is like autoplay videos when we open like a website, and suddenly you'll open like The Times or something, and some horrible like semi-advert with stock music that they're putting.
You're just
going to
get copyrighted into oblivion. I see people enjoying the thumbnail already.
Oh yeah, no, I'm. It took me a second to realize I should put Tony in there. I nearly exported it without Tony, but tone is essential to the process.
You got to up the tone factor.
Got to up the tone factor, yeah. We need more tone. But as we talked about last week, if people want to catch up and they're watching the VOD of this, we did kind of the history of OFCOM and how it is essentially like an artificial media regulation conglomerate. For those who don't know, very, very quick, OFCOM is bad.
That's all. No, very quickly, go listen to the other stream.
Yeah.
Because there is a line of thinking that we can follow throughout a lot of everything that's going on here that we've got in front of all the sources with us this evening, and we're going to go through them at a little bit of a pace. But I think this is the best way to demonstrate how the standards that Ofcom has been operating since 2002 when it was first put in its inception, then given all its power by the 2003 Communications Act, which we're currently looking at the moment, or will be once the thumbnail goes away. All the standards in there have just been constantly redeveloped and redefined up until a point whereby Ofcom now exists in 2023, and it is normal for it to be a platform that attacks websites and individuals.
Well, I promised it last week, but the culmination of this, we'll be explaining how Ofcom applies its standards, how Ofcom has all of these duties to diversity, inclusion, the Equalities Act, all of these extra remits that it's gained over time, but also a worked example, a case study, basically, of how it was able to come in and completely hobble BitChute as a platform for having the temerity to be a business based in the UK.
Yes.
There's all kinds of weird stuff in terms of how it will interact with the online harms bill, because the online harms bill effectively attempts to project Ofcom globally and apply its remit not just to businesses that are headquartered in the UK, but to the entire internet, which, as we talked about during the online safety bill, is completely unworkable by design. But that's quite common with a lot of this stuff, that it is unworkable by design.
Well, I think, shall we start from where we've got here, which is a excerpt, or not excerpt, it's, I believe, in full, with all its revisions so far,
Yes.
the 2003 Communications Act, as it refers to Ofcom specifically.
Yes. Sorry.
So I've picked a couple of little sections out of this that we're just going to go through quickly again as a sort of an example of where things at least started in 2003.
Yes.
And we've got like section 11 here. They have the duty to promote media literacy. Now, if we look at the points A, B, and C here, we've got, bring about or encourage others to bring about a better public understanding of the nature and characteristic of material published by the means of electronic media. To bring about or encourage others to bring about a better public awareness and understanding of the processes by which such media and material is selected or made available for publication by such means. And this carries on, I think, as point D and point E. And we get right to the bottom here of, to encourage the development and use of technologies and systems for regulating access to such material and for facilitating control over what material is received that are both effective and easy to use. And let's sort of carry on with more of this sort of legalese language here, but they're essentially talking about this sort of therapeutic view that Ofcom must have, and that it has to promote television to people. Yeah. That it needs to engage in the promotion of communications media to people for specifically therapeutic and managerial ends.
It very much is like, what does this have to do with regulating media?
Yes.
It's a bizarre thing to read in kind of Ofcom's, effectively, its charter. Well, it's part of the Communications Act, which, as we explained last week, is the legislation. Ofcom was made before the legislation that empowered it was ever written.
Yes.
Which again is an interesting way around. It reminds me of the US bills, where it's like you have to pass the bill before you can read what's in it. So effectively what happened with Ofcom.
Yes.
But we're going straight in here into the Communications Act about what...
If we go to page 26 now.
Yeah, we're talking about Ofcom's remit here, and its remit seems to be the promotion, one, of itself, and two, of quote-unquote media literacy and kind of media navigation by the population at large.
I think we need to scroll down a little bit just for the heading. There we go. Duty to publish and take account of research. Now, I believe this is in relation to the consumer research that they are allowed to perform as part of their remit.
Yeah.
But I found the wording in here strange. They're talking about the duty to publish the results of any research carried out by them or on their behalf under Section 14, and to consider, and to such extent as they function or they take fit, to take account of the results of such research in carrying out of their functions. Ofcom are not required under this section to publish any matter that is confidential in accordance with subsection 3 and 4. B, to publish anything that would be net or reasonably practicable to publish without disclosing such a matter. A matter is confidential under this subsection if it A, relates specifically to the affairs of a particular body, and B, publication of that matter would or might, in Ofcom's opinion, seriously and prejudicially affect the interests of that body. In short, that is a small legalese, basically circular package that allows for any amount of censoring and filtering of
Ofcom
research engaged in by Ofcom, and that they couldn't filter back through into their own work or demonstrate to the public because the Secretary of State, through direct orders, could say, no, you can't publish that.
Again, we're hopefully people will come with us on this journey, but we're picking out some of the odd pieces here of Ofcom's remit.
Yeah, I will say this is a 1,400-page document. I could only go through so many elements of this.
No, it's 1,377 pages long. Someone's having a joke there.
Yeah, but, and then if we go to...
It is a leaked document.
Page 42, which is where we start to get to what are essentially newer amendments, or amendments that have been changed around. Yeah, it's down the bottom of the page. Changed around to suit new policy. So we get into the training and the quality of opportunity. It should be the duty of Ofcom to take all such steps as they consider appropriate for promoting the development of opportunities for the training and retraining of persons, for employment by persons providing television and radio services, and for work in connection with the provisions of such services otherwise than as an employee. It shall be the duty of Ofcom to take all such steps as they consider appropriate for promoting equality of opportunity in relation to both employment by those providing television and radio services and the training and retraining of persons for such employment. And then I think if we scroll down to the bottom here, there's mention of disability, and then we
they kind of have to have this. This is something that all companies now have. But if you read the front-loaded wording here, they talk about for employment by persons providing television and radio services. So it's the diversity and equity statement that all employers must now have by law.
That's the bit we're going to get to in a moment.
But it is projected outwards onto all of the bodies it also regulates.
Look as well. The Secretary of State may by order amend subsection 4 by adding any other form of equality of opportunity that he considers appropriate.
That's rather interesting, isn't it?
But we've got in here as well that you will see that, they've changed the meaning of disabled now to sit with the Equality Act 2010.
Yeah.
Which means equality in this bill doesn't mean what equality meant in 2003 anymore. This bill has evolved to a new definition of equality circa 2010. Which is partly, I think, why if we go now all the way to page 1070... we get to
training and equality of opportunity. Is that in the one?
Oh, sorry, it might be an earlier page. It's under training and equality of opportunity as a heading. So if you search the document, that should be there.
Here it is.
No, I know, but that's not quite the one I'm looking for because it's just the summary section. I must have grabbed the wrong page.
Fair enough. That one.
There should be Keep scrolling through. The other one. And the next. That's interesting. It's promotion of equal opportunities in training. Sorry. Anyway, what that is very much the same thing that was put in the point 27. However, it specifically specifies for license holders, which is the bit you were going to go on to. This then becomes, that's page 476. Apologies. But this is now, not just for Ofcom and its staff, but anyone that Ofcom has given a license to.
Yes. And
as we have witnessed, especially as this bill also includes amendments from the 2017 Digital Communications Act, Digital Economy Act, that those licenses are going to expand because now things like online platforms, as is currently being debated, are those platforms that now need a license to broadcast in the UK?
Well, they are. They basically are. with the combination of what we'll come to, which is the what do they actually call it? VSPs. Which
video service providers.
Video service providers. With the regulation of VSPs and the combination with the Online Harms Bill, all of this now means that we technically, under the online kind of safety bill, have to promote equal opportunity between men and women and between persons of different racial groups. Yeah. Otherwise, we are violating Ofcom's charter.
And it's not just in here as well. I mean, we go on to the next document we've got here, which is some little aside thing about what they're talking about is phoneability, which is the access to phones and communications. It'll be the next one there, right?
This one?
No, the next.
Oh,
document.
phoneability.
Yeah.
I was just gonna the previous section you had though is kind of funny.
I believe that's just it's on 1070. I believe that's just a summary of the sections.
Yeah.
In a more condensed form.
Well, basically, the whole point is that Ofcom, the Communications Act, has been amended so that Ofcom has a remit to promote all forms of equity because of the way that the definition of equality has been changed in the Equalities Act.
Yeah, and I want to as well, through the next few examples, just focus on the lengths that they have gone to keep up with this. We've got this one here, and we go to the second.
Improving access to electronic communication services for disabled people. Fair enough.
We go to the second paragraph, though.
Yeah.
They're talking about The general conditions which Ofcom is seeking to amend have their roots in the past, with some dating back to the days of post office telephones. The telecommunications scene has dramatically changed over the years, particularly as the document points out since 2003 when a new legislative framework was introduced. The role of the communications provider has altered significantly as a result. Also, over that time, the way in which matters relating to discrimination and equality in the provision of services of all kinds has undergone a massive shift. The approach is now much more general and mainstream, with a declaration of basic principles rather than a reliance on prescriptive and therefore parochial rules, which is the difference between the 2003 standard of equality and discrimination that's in the Communications Act and the 2010 Equality Act amendments.
Well, this basically Ofcom and this kind of clarification on the Equalities Act and how it interacts with Ofcom and it's like the unbanked, the untelephoned.
Well, yeah, that's
considered a almost like a disability group in the UK.
Yeah, the second paragraph we got it there, which I think is even better. With this in mind, we would hope that Ofcom could separate those issues which are specific to telecommunication services from the wider picture, which encompasses all forms of service provision and observes discriminatory actions as part of that broader canvas. The consequence, if the distinction is not made, is that telecommunications will be seen as a separate entity when it comes to matters of discrimination and equality, having its own rules which do not equate to those of the service sector in general. There are people who hold that the Equality Act does not apply to telecommunications, but telecommunications has its specific rules, and there are signs that this view, which we hold to be incorrect, is damaging the prospects for achieving greater equality in access to services. So not only are they engaging in equality without in the programming they make, but it is equality within in services that you as an individual have. It's both equality within and equality without. Well, there is nothing outside of equality.
This is also why if you're registered as a vulnerable person of any kind, they cannot suspend your services. And this is also why immigrants and refugees of all kinds are given free phones. Like this is exactly why, because Ofcom has declared that telecommunications in the abstract, one, falls completely under their remit as they were folded into all these other different kind of organizations, and two, that they are able to batter it with the stick of the Equalities Act. The thing is that they have become both wolf and shepherd in this. They have become both the person who sets the rules and then decides who the rules apply to and then applies the rules.
Yes.
So they are able to, at the stroke of a pen, really expand their own remit, and this is a great example of it that you found here, because they're able to come in, say that telecommunications needs more equality, and then arbitrate it as the body that has governance over telecommunications.
And I want
perfect example.
I want to go on now as well and this is something I just happened to come across by accident.
Yeah.
This is right as the radio authority is being absorbed into Ofcom in 2002.
To give you a bit of history, from the previous stream, to go watch it, the Radio Authority is one of the bodies that Ofcom was created out of. It used to be that Britain, like famously Canada, had lots of boards. We had the coal board, the telephone board, all of that stuff. And the Radio Authority used to be, the radio board.
But not in a totally state-run sense.
No, it wasn't.
It was, some of these elements were internal industry elements, but that was something I think we did enough to cover last week. But what I want to look at in here is, first off, the section on taste, decency, and defence. The Terrorism Act 2001. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes wrong now. It's only a small document, so it's just in the page listings. But this is a document demonstrating to...
I'll have to pan to it. I don't know where it is.
...news broadcasters and radio programs, what sort of standards they should have in their programming.
Yeah.
And it just is funny to me that, in that section they're talking about the Terrorism Act 2000 is now in force, and licensees should make sure appropriate staff are aware its effect on reporting terrorism. News gathering and the protection of news sources are affected chiefly by Section 19. These deal primarily with the licensee's responsibility to ensure that reports of terrorism do not amount to incitement, and the failure to disclose information about fundraising, the use and possession of money or property, funding arrangements, and money laundering, which is a weird, like, kind of,
Yeah.
they're saying, you can't report in a way that agitates people, but you must disclose the important information. Which I find, that was only 20 years ago. 23 years ago, if you want to take the Terrorism Act as the date.
Yeah.
And here we are 20 years later. When have we ever had the truth reported to us about a terrorist event?
Never.
Yeah.
It's a weird one that's part of their remit. I'd be interested to see how that was adapted into Ofcom itself. But I believe there is still, I believe the Terrorism Act is still in force, if not overridden and amended by a large amount of other legislation.
Yes.
The problem with British law, and it's also the problem with a lot of Western law, is so much of it is edited through clause changes, tense changes, and definition changes.
Mm.
And an extremely small technical point of law has sweeping changes to how, the law is applied in courtrooms.
Yes.
Or how the law is applied in terms of what isn't prosecutable. So it can be very difficult, especially when looking at documents like this that are of a period, to understand how this now applies.
Yeah, so there are other sections in here as well that we could maybe just skip over just now and other people can read, but I would recommend people look at the Taste, Decency and Offence section, which discusses about how, it's illegal to show children pornography.
Yeah.
Which, again, is like a notion, especially in TV, that's basically just not dealt with anymore. People, this idea that Ofcom has a job to provide a standard of programming that isn't vulgar is completely out of its remit.
Well, they even talk about it. We'll probably have it in the notes. We had it in the notes from last week. We might have it in the notes from this week, which is their podcast, where they talk about the fact that policing taste, decency, vulgarity, foul language used to really be the meat and potatoes of what Ofcom was supposed to be.
It's sort of old hat now.
Yeah, but it's completely fallen by the wayside, and really a lot of it is to do with what they call like social and political offence, and that the things that they receive complaints for now are people being offended by violations of their political opinion, rather than what is considered bad.
We've also got the section religious and spiritual matters.
I believe that's actually a concession to basically, it reminds me of like the weird songs of praise stuff.
Yeah, it is probably a concession, but I just found it interesting that if we scroll down to the non-bold text there, religious traditions in the United Kingdom are mainly Christian.
And most mainstream output which carries religious material is likely to reflect that fact. However, programs and stations aimed at different religious groups and/or particular communities will reflect their religious traditions as appropriate. It's just weird.
I mean, obviously, the whole thing there is about the pluralistic aspect.
But the starting point is non-pluralistic. It's just stating a fact that you are not allowed to state anymore.
And for those of us who are as paranoid as I am, there is, of course, in here a cheeky little mention about the fact that DA notices exist.
Yeah.
which is always a favourite of mine. That's like baby's first red pill when you try and sort of convince people who really don't know what is going on. It's like, do you know the government has a thing called a DA notice where they, through some form of communication, some line of communication that we don't have access to, they can inform the entire media all at one point. Well, do not report on this.
There's the legalistic language of the named person in here as well.
Yes.
Which is one of the things that starts to crop up in the 90s, which basically the government can redefine a specific named person as a specific thing.
Yes.
At any time, which is, I don't know, when we ever talk about UK law in the abstract, we might talk about the Scottish named person scheme. We've talked about it before, but again, in kind of a legalistic sense. But it's interesting that that's mentioned in regard to D notices.
But then we get to what their standards sort of documents looks like now.
Yeah.
And what you end up with is like this vertical they've got here, which is their whole equity, diversity and inclusion hub.
Yes.
Obviously the link for that inside one of the reports is broken, so you can't see the hub, quote unquote. But you get all these weird interactive pages and all their different reports, and there is...
Where is this hub supposed to be?
If we click on the next report that we've got,
this one?
Yeah, it's in one of the footnotes in here it mentioned the equity.
This?
No, that's still not it. You can't access it.
That's weird. So it's just a completely broken thing.
Yeah.
I'm getting hope not hate flashbacks.
Yes, but I thought it was maybe worth noting that they have this whole vertical, and we'll come back to some of the other.
Note the
moments.
language change to equity here.
Yes.
Basically, I know it was something people talked about in about 2018. It started to crop up. People like, oh, equity. They're not going to do this. That's too far. And then everything says equity now. You will not see, outside of like government department names and kind of holdover pieces, you'll not see the word equality used in either Britain or America in official capacity at all anymore. It is all the use of the term equity, which, as Baby's first anti-SJW video always points out, means equality of outcome. But.
Yes. But if we go to the next document we've got on the list there, which is essentially their...
Well, look, let's just go through it here. This section includes our annual reports on equality, diversity, and inclusion in broadcasting. Basically, they have a very, very robust, as you would expect, diversity statement. But they're talking about, Ofcom believes that TV and radio programs should reflect the experiences of everyone in our society. It's all very, again, supposedly neutral language. But here's the broadcasting regulator going, look, your broadcasting must be equitable or else it is against the law.
Yeah.
And we define what is and is not equitable.
I won't belabor all the points that are in here. There is one section I would like to look at. I don't know if you want to quickly fire up the find thing.
Yeah.
Broadcasters should aim. Because you've not spelled it right.
It'd be much better if you gave these beforehand.
It was in the document.
Okay, broadcasters should
aim.
There we go.
Yeah, the culture and voice section of it. Broadcasters should aim to embed diversity and inclusion at the center of their business. This means empowering all staff to engage with EDI strategies and fostering an inclusive culture to allow all colleagues the opportunity to thrive. It's just the embedded diversity and inclusion at the center of their business.
Yes.
I mean, I can remember reading some of this stuff years ago, and it used to be, there should be an emphasis on it, or there should be a tone of inclusivity. Now it must be embedded.
Well,
it
here
is
it is.
The center.
Broadcasters may want to consider introducing versions of the following examples of good practice. So this is what Ofcom promotes as good practice. EDI training for all staff. Defining the expected workplace behaviors, strategies that focus on creating and promoting an inclusive culture, policies that promote health, blah, blah, blah. A strategy to ensure broadcasters are effectively adjusting to the needs of their staff. Basically, it's enforced therapeutizing of... if you're in the broadcasting business, which when the online safety bill passes, everyone is. Apparently, everyone who is on the internet is in the broadcasting business by the remit of Ofcom.
Yes.
So if you are, say, Joe Blogs in even like Serbia or like Montenegro, or you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and you want to start up like a video hosting site and have it served to UK IP addresses, by the letter of the law, you will have to follow all of this. You'll have to, if Ofcom comes to you and say, hello, Mr. Blogs, are you providing equality, diversity, and inclusion training to all of your staff? Oh, you're not? Well, I'm sorry, but you can no longer serve the UK market. It sounds ridiculous, but they, at any time, can reach down and do that.
Yeah, and I believe if we go to the next document we have as well, they don't just set these standards. They also have whole offices and whole studies that have been going on for 5 years now.
Yeah.
To cross-reference and check. I mean, if we scroll down into the sort of middle pages of this report, they've got a few graphics just to demonstrate like the lengths they're going to make sure that all of this stuff is logged. That, the male to female rate is always right, and the minority ethnic group is always right. And then very interestingly, as I found reading this earlier on, that they talk about LGB representation, but they've decided not to engage with the T.
That's when is this from?
This is from this year. 2nd November 2022. So
LGB representation. That's odd.
Now they go and use the LGBT acronym. later on in this report, but it's something they don't seem to have worked in for one reason or another.
So basically, we have codified in Ofcom policy like exact diversity quotas.
Yes.
And being like, look, your broadcasting needs to reflect this, or else you are in violation. Of course, it's never in violation if it's overestimating, minority groups. But just to be, if they go, well, only 12% of the people in your advert were ethnic minority, so that doesn't necessarily, directly represent the UK population. Therefore, that violates, your remit. Or that will be the ASA. Otherwise, we'll get towards the end. The ASA basically is just the clone version of Ofcom for adverts.
But they just have. There's going to be another one or two here, but they have so much stuff for this. I mean, they've got this like another janky page, which is I think part of the hub thing. It's the next link we've got up there. This is one of the. I think this is what this hub thing was supposed to be, but it doesn't really work. So if you scroll down on this and you go and click the, I think what was it, like the page 3 or page 4 one I looked at earlier was it's like comments from the BBC.
What the hell?
I know, it's so broken. But it's comments from the BBC feedbacking to Ofcom about how their DEI programs are going and how they can both work together to make these programs work better.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't even end there. They're talking about the creative diversity unit within the BBC. How much do you not want to work there? The BBC appointed redacted.
I hope they've been redacted.
But there's basically the BBC talking very therapeutically about how they're taking classic Scottish theatre and putting black people in it and pretending that makes it representative.
It's very much the big feedback loop that there must be a dialogue of how do we have ever more increasing diversity, equity, and inclusion within broadcasting for you to survive under Ofcom's remit. It's again, there's this neutral presentation that Ofcom is somebody who just, they react to complaints with a light touch, and that's what all they're there for. They essentially publicly lie about what their remit is, what their responsibility is, and how much power they have, and how much they do intervene in a kind of a leaning on the scales way. And if you're not willing to get into a lengthy dialogue and hire someone effectively full time, as a diversity liaison to Ofcom to prove that you are doing these things, these aren't just suggestions; these are compliance necessities.
Yeah. Before we get to the last one here, I just wanted to reinforce the point.
Yeah.
Which is that point 337, whatever it was, in the first original document. That was an amendment made to the 2003 Communications Act. Decades later, this is all the make-work scheme that this has produced.
Yes.
There are hundreds of people employed in this stuff. Because if we go to, I believe the next one is a paper that Ofcom requested from the London School of Economics. And in here they list all of these different papers.
Is the front page. It's a page from the LSE called Rapid Evidence Assessment of Diversity in Public Service Broadcasting.
So it's a meta-analysis on studies about how diversity and inclusion schemes have worked in TV. Yeah.
Basically, we told them to do something, and they did it.
But just, there's this first, that paragraph here we've got. Yeah. There is some absolute crackers in here.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that if you go digging deep in this stuff, they just say it.
Yeah.
They're just saying it now. A number of articles focus on multiculturalism and the portrayals of different communities in the UK, Tollerton 2015, and an analysis of Merlin, BBC programme from 2008 to 2012, draws parallels between the difficulties faced by Uther and his war on magic and the ways in which arguments about multiculturalism have not changed the reality that Britain is more diverse than it used to be. The use of colourblind casting, where the race, ethnicity of the character is not relevant to the narrative or to their identity, affects a parallel with the perceived value of integration as part of multiculturalism. The perceived value of integration.
Yeah.
Right in that sentence alone, as you're becoming a minority framework about how, well, the problem with immigration is that nation states exist.
Yeah, they're talking basically as colourblind casting and Return to Fresh Prince as the absolute minimum baseline that is slightly looked down on and tutted at.
Yeah, we have to have black versions of the Arthurian legend because it allows Arthur to represent tolerance and integration. Per 2015 examines the programme's second generation, Channel 4 2003, to explore the integration of South Asian identities into mainstream British culture since the immersion of South Asians on television in the 1970s. And since the advent of Channel 4 with its explicit remit for increased diversity...
Yeah, by the way, Channel 4 was only given a kind of like public service charter if it firehose blacks at you. Like that is explicit.
While migration and the status of the female immigrant is made visible in the drama for the first time on television, the South Asian female stereotype is still constructed to fit a particular political agenda of multiculturalism. The identity of the main character is complex. Her story crosses cultures, and she has a voice where her mother, an immigrant to the UK, had none. The music in the series indicates hybridity, subtitles indicate the movement and ease of belonging to two cultures, and the capacity to de-center Western identities. Nonetheless, the complexities of lived second-generation identities are simplified in the story to make it more accessible, i.e., they're still not happy with the neoliberal view of multiculturalism.
Yeah, they
want the monoculture.
They're basically just coming out and saying that, look, we are making propaganda, but your propaganda isn't. That's just de-center Western identities, political agenda of multiculturalism. They're just coming out and saying, look, this has an explicit agenda in which we want it to de-center the westernized identities of people.
I'd imagine this isn't anywhere near the worst stuff.
No.
This is just sort of what I was able to do in sort of 90 minutes or so worth of research this morning. So I don't know if there's anything else you want to add here, or if you want to get into the example of BitChute.
Oh no, it just keeps going. Multiculturalism flexing on other sides, black and British. Basically, this, though, is the smoking gun that, diversity, as much as people deny it, all this stuff is enshrined in British law. That you, by law, have to put out anti-native propaganda. You have to put out multiculturalism propaganda.
Ola Sogu brings black history into the story of the British present and challenges the narrative of a white past, multicultural present.
Yeah.
Rather than presenting a normative understanding of multiculturalism as a means of overcoming difference, the programme historically locates and contextualises interaction across difference and makes ethnic diversity part of Britain's past and present. So next time you see some shitlib on Twitter who's giving you some nonsense and sending you some LSE report about how the free market or legal immigration or how pluralism are good for you, send them this and tell them to go stuff themselves.
It's basically them just coming out and saying, yes, we made propaganda. Yes, we know it's not
real.
We
are going to erase Western history.
Yeah.
And that is our job as the neutral regulator of media at OFCOM.
It's just amazing that this stuff's just out there and people don't talk about it. The fact that they have this remit to go out and in an explicitly political sense, as it says, promote multiculturalism as part of their diversity requirement. It's not just, this is being fostered. It is required. If this was not done, the broadcasters would be further brought to heel. Yes, I would like to get to my example, though, of BitChute. Because BitChute, I think, as these regulations apply to TV, it is onerous. But TV is a business. A centralized business that is generally located in small pockets, already consisting of the media class. Essentially, what they're doing is keeping people in line who were already in line. A lot of the regulations, as they refer to kind of TV, radio, traditional broadcasting, have a limited effect because all of those institutions were already captured because the history of the BBC and the history of broadcasting in Britain. It was all set up by the government and has been largely government run and led ever since. But as we get on to, here's a report. This is from 2020. It's all relatively recent, and this is Ofcom's report into regulating video sharing platforms.
This is, of course, an extension of the remit they were given in 2016 as they became the regulator of video-on-demand services.
Yes, it is. This is an outgrowth of the fact that they were given a small remit over UK-based video-on-demand services. This was all done also very quietly during the lockdowns. Ofcom became... It was published, and as you'll read here, almost like a pilot scheme. But it wasn't. It was a complete change of remit for Ofcom. And it very quickly morphed into a rather ugly power demonstration in which they basically went out and looked for a service to like visibly and ritually humiliate with these rules.
And if I'm right in saying as well, this is also an example of our Brexit handling Tory government implementing an EU media regulation into a British
here we
institution.
go. This is 2020, lockdown era. People aren't really thinking about Brexit and all that. But Ofcom is still slavishly, as the Online Harms Bill does, Online Safety Bill, it's slavishly referencing EU law. Because there's a quick overview here.
Well, you've got to assess stakeholders.
Yeah, there's mention of stakeholders here, but in the definitions and requirements, once you get to the meat of the report itself, it talks about the fact that the 2018 revision to the Audiovisual Media Services Directive introduces a regulatory framework for a new category of service, video sharing platforms, or VSPs. Despite, quote unquote, Brexit being done by this point and supposedly our institutions being unpicked from the EU, all of this that you will see here in relation to BitChute, in relation to the regulation of online video services in which they can interact with the public, is justified on the grounds of EU law.
Well, I've noticed as well before that people ask us, like, well, how does the Online Safety Bill matter if they've not passed it yet? Look at point 2 here. Yeah. The government has transposed the VSP framework into Part 4B of the Communications Act. This will come in force 1st November 2020. So there is the hammer portion of the Online Safety Bill being brought into law by being made an adaptation to a law that's existed on the books for 17 years at this point.
As we talked about during it, the Online Safety Bill is important because there's an Online Safety Bill hole in existing legislation. The on-ramp to it, the lead-in to it, and really many of the powers that are included in the Online Safety Bill have de facto and de jure already been granted to bodies like Ofcom.
Point 2.5. Ofcom understands the government's intention is for the VSP regulation to be in place until such time as the new online harms regime comes into force.
So they are passing stopgap regulation for regulation that is supposed to be extremely controversial. It's supposed to be debated, but the wording of this report makes it very clear that the online harms bill, the Online Safety Bill is coming. It is all law has been prepared for it.
And I believe as well, you mentioned elsewhere in the notes that in this VSP framework, there is already name drops of the, illegal but harmful, legal but not harmful content. Yeah.
Well, it's just the whole thing here. New provisions include requirements to take appropriate measures to protect children from harmful content, to protect the general public from incitement to hatred and violence, and from criminal content. They also include requirements relating to standards around advertising. We discussed the new requirements in further detail below. So they use the term harmful here. What are the main requirements on video service providers? The main purpose of the new VSP regime is to ensure that providers take appropriate measures to protect consumers who engage with these services from the risk of viewing harmful content. Again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mention illegal content here. It simply mentions the idea of harmful content. The harmful but legal framework is already in force with these adaptations to the Communications Act, and they are already being enforced by Ofcom. We are already seeing the as you said, the sledgehammer end of the Online Safety Bill in force here. Protect the general public from videos and advertisers containing relevant harmful material. Restrict material for the videos which have or would like to have an R18 certificate. So again, they become the arbiters of what is and isn't pornography. Violence, relevant harmful material refers to any material likely to incite violence or hatred against a group or persons or member of persons based on particular grounds, which then references the Equality Act. It also refers to the inclusion of material which would be a criminal offence under laws relating to terrorism, child sex exploitation, racism, or xenophobia, which again I think will refer to the Communications Act again. So it's kind of doing double duty there. Protect users from harmful materials. Most effective at protecting users from harmful materials. Harmful content. Harmful. It's very much part of the online harms framework. It's all already here. It just keeps mentioning potentially, reviewing the user experience when visiting the video service providers and interactions with potentially harmful content, including the effectiveness of age gating measures,
which we know is biometrics and digital ID.
Reviewing the nature of the content that has been previously flagged or removed due to being harmful in order to improve identification processes. So the OFCOM is now involved, if you look at this, in moderation. They are able to review moderation practices, as we'll get to in some of the later reports about this, in such a way that protects children and the general public from harmful material. So, with the stroke of a pen, really, broadcasters that are based in the UK are now completely equivalent to, like I said, Joe Blog's video site that allows you to upload one video a week. It's also completely open-ended. They don't have like size limits or user limits or minimum turnover. If you are a website that allows people who aren't your like explicit employees to upload video, this applies to you.
Well, yeah, it's the same thing with equality. The definition of equality was changed by law. So by law, all the mentions of equality in previous laws now have to be in some way updated or morphed to fit this newer definition.
You must have a harmful but legal moderation system. You must have ways to show that you are able to flag it. In fact, in one of these reports, it criticizes the lack of automatic deletion on the part of someone like BitChute, and it seems to imply that that OFCOM is encouraging the use of automated censorship tools online as a way to comply with its regulations. But here's what it looks like on OFCOM's end, and here really is how they were able to bring a body like BitChute to heel. If you go on their website, you look at what is a notified video sharing platform, and it just says video sharing platforms are a type of online video service which allows users to upload and share videos with the public. Since November 1st, 2020, UK established VSPs must comply with new rules around protecting users from harmful content. Providers must have in place appropriate measures to protect under 18s from material which might impair their physical, mental, or moral development, and to protect the general public from criminal content and material likely to incite violence. But it just basically goes into it. But it basically has a list of all the people and all the providers that it applies to. The BitChutes here. I believe to end up on this list, you have to have a UK vertical. Twitch and Vimeo are on here, even though those aren't technically headquartered in the UK, because I believe they have UK PLC subsidiaries. So really, this is just a giant test case.
I would presume as well, if you were someone who was trying to run a video platform site like BitChute anonymously in the UK,
you couldn't.
Yes,
that would be important. Like you would have to notify. Like you have a duty of care.
So much for the anonymity of the marketer.
Yeah. If you are running a website in the UK that allows users to upload video, you by law have to notify Ofcom. Otherwise, you'll be in violation of Ofcom standards and you'll be shut down immediately.
And as far as I'm aware, we're not on to the complaints aspect.
Oh no! I'm just saying guidance, video sharing platforms. Who needs to notify Ofcom? From April 6, 2021, again already enforced, video sharing platform providers in UK jurisdiction. It's again ill-defined what UK jurisdiction is. Are legally obligated to submit a formal notification of their services to Ofcom. It talks about guidance, video sharing platforms. You need to notify Ofcom. I think I've already got that up here, but basically the guidance notes talk about jurisdiction a little. Well, basically they take the maximalist approach and say
I would presume that they don't want to fully define jurisdiction, so they can leave it open in future for their either to be EU encompassing.
Look at this
regulation of online media.
I am of the opinion, having read this entire document, that it is deliberately phrased to be confusing.
Yes.
This effectively says nothing. It clears nothing up. And it means that if you are somebody in the UK who even runs a service on behalf of somebody else abroad, or you're an employee of a video service in a senior capacity, this could apply to you. It's basically meant to kind of scare the shit out of people and make them err on the side of caution and notify Ofcom.
Yeah, and I know we don't have loads of examples of it here because it's something that I want to leave to the side for the moment until we know more.
Yeah.
But as we've seen in the case of Mark Stein at GB News, if that's to be taken at face value, Ofcom is also increasing its remit not only against providers and platforms, but individual presenters, and in the Lineker case, an individual presenter's presence on social media outside of the programming.
Yes.
Which, in a certain sense, means Ofcom's entire remit could extend to something like a social credit score, because they have to monitor all of the communicative behaviour of a presenter or a video platform provider or whatever.
Well, this also speaks to the incredibly torturous nature of trying to legislate for amorphous and evolving online technologies, in that they are trying to cover all possibilities here, so that basically anything can be defined as a video streaming platform, and they are completely failing. It is complete bullshit legalese that doesn't understand how the marketplace works, the internet works, and again by design, in that it can just have it basically is just like a giant middle finger that says that Ofcom can reach down if it feels it has the remit and completely crush you. Again, here's the complaint section. You can complain about video service providers. You can complain about content that is not a video advertisement, a video showing the sexual exploitation or abuse of children, a video showing other harmful content, and the safety measures of a platform, including reporting and complaints. This is the one that caught my eye, because it means that under Ofcom's remit, they have complete control of your moderation services. If they do not feel your moderation services are up to scratch, they will sanction you and they will take you off air, which is partly what they did to BitChute. But now that we've got the preamble out of the way and you kind of understand that Ofcom has been given a blank check to regulate any of kind of a video service providers in the UK, we get on to the red meat, as it were, that Ofcom was thrown to the wolves as. Because January 2021, and kind of after that, there was a big media blitz in January and May of that year. This is from the Times. It says, hateful BitChute video site is first test for Ofcom. As soon as they were given these rules, they weren't even in force, I believe, at this point. There was kind of a weird limbo period between 2020 and 2021 before people had to report themselves. So they couldn't even really define that BitChute was a service provider in the UK, because they didn't have a responsibility to self-report, but that's kind of by the by. But just the language in here is amazing. It's just, a video sharing platform is being reported to Ofcom for hosting hosting hateful, violent, and anti-Semitic content in the first big test of social media regulation. Again, it's even been presented that way. BitChute, which has been described as YouTube for the far right, is hosting scores of videos related to Holocaust denial and glorification. Its users can also watch videos concerning conspiracy theories about the US presidential election, the coronavirus pandemic, and vaccines. It's doing the bad thing. Last year, BitChute, which was registered in Newbury, Berkshire, as a response to what the founder called increased levels of censorship by the large social media platforms, was found to have hosted videos from banned far-right terrorist groups. I think that refers to National Action. Research by the Community Security Trust, a Jewish charity, found easily accessible vast quantities of videos that both deny and glorify the Holocaust. How can it be both? Yeah. Yeah. How do you both deny and glorify the Holocaust? Can we get some oy veys in chat, please? We require some oy veys for this because the shit writes
Yeah.
itself.
In the days before Holocaust Memorial Day yesterday, the Trust searched BitChute for 5 terms: Holocaust, Auschwitz, Hitler, gas was the other ones I've got there.
And Frank.
And Frank. It collected the top 20 results for each term, which resulted in 97 videos because of 3 duplications. The videos had a combined figures of 1.6 million people. I don't know. That seems like a lot.
That seems like a lot, yeah.
I mean, there's at least a diverse set of opinions. It's denial, distortion, inversion, or glorification.
Videos included
At
claims
least it's
that,
not an echo chamber.
Yeah. Well, basically, in the UK, Holocaust denial is not illegal, but it is. Effectively, with this remit, the UK has criminalized Holocaust denial.
Yeah, but the thing here you've got as well, the Dave Rich, I'm sure he's rich, the Trust Director of Policy, said it was an important test case for Ofcom in terms of how it could handle social media regulation.
Yeah.
The government has previously announced that Ofcom would be given powers to investigate social media companies such as Facebook and Twitter under the Online Harms Bill, which is due to be debated this year. That's not true.
Yeah.
Ofcom has already been given the powers.
And now they're testing them, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it just says that Mr. Rich, who again is the president of a Jewish charity, that's remit is basically to police people for saying wrong things. This is a dry run ahead of them potentially being the regulator for everything. What will they do about this one platform that's so unarguably appalling that there's not even a grey area? Ofcom said it would carefully assess any complaint. Ray Vahey, the founder and chief executive of BitChute, said that it was politically neutral and regulated by Ofcom. We treat all users equals with the same rights, blah, blah, blah. So it's basically just coming out and saying, look, we have chosen this, this one quote-unquote free speech site. We are going to nuke it from orbit as an example to the other ones.
When it was set up with the express extent of holding content that was like that on it.
Yeah, this is why you can't run an alt-tech platform. This is why we don't run to alt-tech. This is why we're not establishing alt-tech. Because if you do, Ofcom comes and destroys you. We're actually safer under YouTube's weird umbrella at the moment because of how they are able to essentially loophole the law by being a too big to fail company.
That, and we also hide amongst all the noise that exists.
Yeah. This again is why alt-tech is unfortunately useless because culture is downstream from law. There's another article here from the London School of Economics.
Oh, these folk again.
Which basically just talks about Ofcom as an extension of European law. They talk about the audio-visual media, something, basically the EU media regulation body. Last week, Ofcom published its guidance on new regulation to tackle harmful online content, including hate speech. Again, Britain doesn't really have explicit hate speech laws. It has incitement laws, but it doesn't have hate speech laws. But there's de facto and de jure issues here. De facto, Holocaust denial in Britain is legal. De jure, it's not supposed to be. It's we're supposed to be the free speech company, but you see how the power works here.
That's how the original 2003 Communications Act was written up. It didn't necessarily have express elements of hate crimes, but what it did state was that using communications to express hate was miscommunication, and that was what you were charged for. It was using the communication inappropriately, not specifically the content you said on it.
I'm reminded of an old joke about BitChute, which is that it is BitChute.
Yes.
As in the Australian. Anyway, last week Ofcom published its guidance for new EU legislation to tackle harmful online content, including hate speech. Again, they're just acknowledging the fact here that the UK still exists under the EU law remit. But it's just the bit here. Most platforms under content moderation to keep Most platforms use content moderation to keep their users safe. However, the coverage and detail of moderation varies across different platforms, from limited moderation boasted by platforms such as Gab and BitChute through to more comprehensive efforts to large platforms. The AVMSD establishes minimal requirements for platforms to remove illegal online hate and create space for them to tackle hate that is legal but violates their terms of service, which is a really weird way of saying it. Basically, it just means that Ofcom and the EU define what is in your terms of service.
Yeah, they've got another bit. Despite the ubiquity of content moderation systems, numerous concerns have been raised about their performance, fairness, robustness, explainability, and scalability. Addressing these concerns will require critical reflection on how content moderation is designed and implemented, including consideration of whether other approaches, such as enabling counter speech or improving media literacy, there's that term again,
Yes.
could be more effective in keeping users safe. As a starting point, given its likely continued use across the industry, here we explain more crap about the specifics, but just that notion again there that, oh, well, if we just have another therapeutic program of media literacy, then we can eradicate hate from the internet.
Yes.
And pretend that we aren't just using mass censorship methods to do it.
Again, identify online hate, handle online hate. Oh, victims of East Asian prejudice.
Yeah, they're talking there as well. Most content moderation processes are identifying online hate, user reports, artificial intelligence, and human review. And
that's funny.
Yeah.
Sorry, there's just a little thing about basically trying to use technology to stop people calling you a packy, but
AI is not a silver bullet and should supplement rather than supplant the use of human moderators.
Third, content identifies hate needs to be handled with intervention. Public discourse often focuses on the effects of bans, but in practice, platforms use many other inventions. 14 moderation strategies available to VSPs enable use to build. Basically, what they're getting at here is the fact that Ofcom, via its extended remit of the EU Parliament, is the complete arbitrator of what your terms of service are, what is your acceptable content. This is just the...
that's my favourite paper.
Jewish News. This is one of the first results that comes up when you actually type in BitChute.
It's the only newspaper in the Britain that doesn't burn.
Yeah, we did... we didn't have to dig for this one. We're not just throwing this in for meme value. UK video sharing site BitChute condemned for hosting anti-Semitic hate. This is from October last year. It's kind of a rehash. New investigations find BitChute has failed to take down violent racist content from this platform, and it references the Holler hoax.
Then you've got the synagogue shooting and
Brenton
Tarrant and.
It basically goes on to talk about the fact that tech against terrorism, which we'll get onto later. But the whole thing is that where is it? Sorry, there's an Ofcom bit in here. Yeah, Ofcom said in a report this week, we consider that the nature of BitChute's platform, basically the fact that BitChute is explicitly a quote-unquote free speech platform, means that they are under the cosh heavier. Like, if you explicitly make your platform about saying things that you're not ordinarily allowed to say on other social media platforms, even though they are completely legal, Ofcom will come down on you harder.
A study of 3 million of its videos from 2019 to 2021 by US academics concluded that much of its content contains hateful and extreme rhetoric, often anti-Semitic or racist in nature, as is everything that US academics study. But on October 6, BitChute signed up to Tech Against Terrorism, a non-profit organisation launched by the UN that works with the tech industry to tackle terrorist content online. I wonder if Elon signed up to that.
I wonder. But basically, as we'll get onto, there's a report here that talks about BitChute and it's kind of its progress, and it's incredibly patronising, and it really shows the fact that Ofcom kind of grabbed BitChute by like the scruff of the neck and completely destroyed them. Also, like, BitChute's fucking metrics here are terrible.
Just the opening paragraph there for a second. BitChute positions itself as a free speech video sharing platform that aims to empower its users to share their thoughts and opinions without unjust criticism or discrimination. Are they just expecting that they can say that at face value with quotes around it and that people will just assume that, well, of course, they're just Nazis?
BitChute is often described as hosting alternative content, including far-right views and conspiracy theories. They just kind of go on there. Key findings. BitChute does not currently use automated detection measures to remove content, relying instead on human moderation and user reports. Viewers do not need to create an account on BitChute to watch video content. This means that many viewers do not have to declare their age or read or agree to any terms and conditions. Again, if you look at some of the stuff coming out of the online safety bill, they're already putting in place a lot of these requirements. There's a lot of requirements, right? You must have automated systems that we have access to so we can upload clips and even categories of fact you are not allowed to publish. You must have users make an account with a verified real identity. That means that they have to be trackable and traceable by what they view. BitChute reviews and removes content violating its terms of service when it is reported by third-party organizations like Tech Against Terrorism, in addition to reports from its own users. BitChute became a member of Tech Against Terrorism in October 2022 following its participation in the Tech Against Terrorism mentorship program. From what I can gather, the Tech Against Terrorism mentorship program is basically like probation that all of these platforms will be put on if they do not play ball. Engagement with OFCOM. Since the start of the VSP regime, BitChute has engaged constructively with OFCOM as improved the measures in place on its platform in response to the new regulatory regime. This included updating its terms and conditions and increasing the number of moderators it employs. Again, OFCOM can go to you and say, you need to change your terms and conditions. You need to hire more moderators. By the way, those need to be diverse moderators. BitChute also submitted its full information request response before the deadline. Nevertheless, the number of users accessing BitChute is growing, and we expect the team will have to grow to meet the increased risk that comes alongside the great number of users. Under the VSP regime, there is no requirement on platforms to proactively remove or monitor content. That's kind of a lie, because there is an onus on them to do that, and there is definitely an onus on them to do that in the pre-online harm stuff. They're effectively enforcing the law before it comes into effect, while saying they're not. It's a great rhetorical trick there. Therefore, the mere existence of harmful content on a platform would not mean BitChute is failing to comply with the VSP regime. However, we consider the nature of BitChute's platform raises the risk, and that users may seek to use it to upload videos containing harmful content. Again, that's the bit that was quoted in the report. We consider that the nature of BitChute's platform raises the risk that users may seek to use it to upload videos that contain harmful content. So they're explicitly saying that BitChute is anti-regime nominally. Therefore, it must have a closer eye kept on it. We'll therefore continue to engage with BitChute to ensure that it has measures in place to protect its users. It talks about the fact that they had the Buffalo, New York shooting uploaded there, footage of the attack, blah, blah, blah. Tech Against Terrorism, first annual transparency report.
Yeah, I have to admit, I had a quick look at Tech Against Terrorism website, and they have all their own reports and stuff. I believe that may be a follow-up at some point, all of its own.
Yes, they have like transparency reporting, and all of this stuff is now required though. There's huge...
OFCOM basically has to engage in a sort of social credit score for platforms.
Yes. Well, here we go, user's journey. They talk about, user login, blah, 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 blah. User watching, engage with content, signing in. It's a very, very detailed report, detecting harmful content, enforcing against harmful content. All of these areas are stuff that OFCOM is able to write a report on because it has governance over. It's this granular. Moderators are trained to ensure consistency when applying sanctions. Users can appeal against sanctions. And then it just talks about basically BitChute is like the last one in this report because it's the one that they took the most action against. But as you can see with all of this, it seems boilerplate until you realize that these are all areas that OFCOM explicitly told BitChute to focus on to remain as a functioning business. They were able. This is why BitChute kind of fell out of the running as an alt tech platform and why people fled it in droves. Because it essentially became the pet project of OFCOM to promote their new framework to the letter and bring the full weight of commercial TV broadcasting onto an online platform. Again, BitChute publishes user access to other tools, e.g. media literacy. It's coming back around here.
You have to put their therapeutic media literacy products on the front page of your website.
All of the stuff we described previously applies to BitChute. They have to promote diversity in the races. They have to promote equity, racial equity by law.
Both within and without.
Yes, they have to promote racial equity within their own country. They have to have racially diverse moderators, and they also must promote racial equity within their content. That is mandated by British law. And as I described earlier, this really is why you can't be an independent media creator in Britain without doing what we're doing, essentially kind of fly-by-nighting it. When you do get noticed, this is what can and will happen to you. And BitChute is a great example of the fact that they were effectively press ganged into becoming the good boys, and were shown as like a head on a spike for the new media legislation regime that is explicitly an on-ramp to the online safety bill.
Yes.
Like, they did this very openly as a test case to go in and batter down somebody that was doing the whole free speech platform thing. Again, this is why we keep talking about like stop demanding free speech and things like that, because this is the result.
Yes.
This is the result when you naively try and start a business based on, the liberal myth of complete freedom of expression. But I haven't seen any visual or algorithmic or manipulation on BitChute. You've not seen it, but it's there. It has to be
It's
there.
irrelevant anyway.
Yeah, it's irrelevant anyway because they are Ofcom's bitch.
I mean, the next link you have here is BitChute admitting that they are owned.
Yeah. Membership of Tech Against Terrorism. Zero tolerance to terrorism. BitChute, we have zero tolerance for terrorism and violent extremism. We believe that collaboration with capable partnerships. Again, this is kind of the minimum they've had to do, but this is the whole, like, they can't just be like, fuck you, we're going to have, like, live leak footage. We're going to be live leak. That's kind of what BitChute tried to be. BitChute tried to fill that hole left by live leak. And because it had the temerities to be based in the UK, this is like what they did to it. They are now publishing reports on the fact that they have, engagement with Ofcom. They've improved it. They made it a good media boy. But it's I don't know why you would use something like BitChute. One, it's not a particularly good platform, and two, again, it has been very much hand in glove, taken over by the UK government. It's probably crawling with security state people to monitor, cajole, manipulate, track, and ultimately convert you. Again, what we talked about during the You Aren't Paranoid Enough stream, what we talked about during the Prism stream, all this is just the front ending of it. Once you are in, they can keep doing more. And that's what I'm trying to relay to people here, that Ofcom is already powerful enough to do this. It's already powerful enough to crush what was at the time quite a leading platform like BitChute. There was a lot of hype around it. It was doing quite well. And essentially, because of its remit, because of its free speech remit, and being taken over by Ofcom, it was killed. That's really how Ofcom kneecapped BitChute, because Ofcom is an extension of basically all other UK kind of legislation that is onerous, and it will be brought down to you at like a personal level. I mean, this is, people don't think that like the Equalities Act applies to them as an individual, because they think that they have, well, I'm not a business, I'm not an employer, I have my free expression. But as someone who is speaking out on the internet, you do not.
Well, we've talked about it a number of times, the example of how someone like Keir Starmer gets himself into power because he's seen in front of his own base to be policing the dangerous or radical element of the left.
Yeah.
Here is the Conservative Party, having now used Ofcom for over a decade now.
Yeah.
To police the far right and the radical fringe of their own political base.
I don't want to insult people in chat, and I don't mean to, by kind of my response there. It's not that do not think of it in terms that they will go in and bust it up, shut it down, lock it up. That's not what they want to do.
It's about controlling it.
If anything, BitChute is full of a lot of that fringe stuff because they want that fringe stuff around. They want, as we talk about it, the regime wants normality to be conspiracy jacketed. I think one of the better streams did about that was the demobilization thing, and that all these weird David Icke types came out and shouted climate lockdown when it's much more simple but much more onerous than that.
Yeah,
people aren't talking about like
at the very least standing up and screaming climate lockdown. Everyone's a Satanist, blood sucking lizard.
That is what it adds up to, but they weren't doing the A to B to C of it. They weren't actually explaining to people what is going on and how it will affect them. And by doing that, they were able to be portrayed as putting out misinformation because they were being lazy, really. A lot of it on BitChute is just bait. It is like bait central. And any kind of breaking event, like they talked about the Buffalo, New York shooting, that would be there in a kind of a unique, unfiltered capacity is no longer allowed to be there. All you get is the cranks.
Yes.
And it's a great sign as well, because OFCOM has taken it over, that the cranks are acceptable to the regime. If you are a David Icke type, that is exactly what OFCOM wants.
I believe this is what we refer to as the kook sphere.
Yes, the kook sphere is exactly where OFCOM wants you to be. And as I've had up in the corner this whole time, this is another big part of
New Britain writ large.
This is how New Britain will be enforced. Anyway, I think we've kind of explained everything over there. Is there anything else you want to add before we do the promotions?
No, there's nothing else I want to add. I would just mention the fact that we are still selling tickets for our Nomos events. Manchester 2 and Nomos X Mises that will be in Manchester on the 26th and 27th of May. However, all the early bird tickets are sold out at this exact moment, so it's just tickets for the main event. They are up for just under £40. There is both the Discord and the Telegram links below if you wish to communicate with people and organise transport or somewhere cheap to stay for the weekend, and we hope to see you all there.
We also do still have links down below, the Anti-Politics Substack. There'll be something going up there tomorrow. The most recent one there is my Skull Collapse piece, but there will be another research piece going up there tomorrow. So do look out for that. Again, we are still fully monetized. If you guys want to support us, memberships are available. If you would like to give to us directly, there is a PayPal link there. But thank you guys for turning up. Thank you guys for coming. It's always good. If you want to see more of these, do interact with the videos.
Support us, and we will produce more.
Yes,
it's that easy.
These might be slightly more mundane ones, but they will become important.
Well, I know as well that there are probably a lot of people who would have otherwise watched this stream that are watching Lambda's stuff, which has been on for most of today and will continue to be on this evening. So anyone that's sitting there wondering what to do with their evening and they're not going to watch the rest of Sean Murphy versus Robert Milkins, they can go and watch Lambda's stream.
Yes, go and say hi.
You're all free.
You're all.
Get out. Go away. Good night.
Oh no, I've lost the link. There it is.